we need to focus on the core value proposition, and the core problem that we are solving is serving and providing royalty-free music. Now, how you give that music and what functionalities you build on top of it, that is basically what the iterative customer development was helping us develop. So that's how we prioritized our features. And so in terms of shift in the product, adding previews, giving instrument controls, having subsections, giving like the users the ability to have multiple moods inside the same song. All of these kind of features is what we kind of discovered, and we brought it onto the tool. And parallelly, we also kind of understood that a lot of our users look for royalty-free music online on Google search. Like they would just type like royalty-free music for background music for videos, things like that. So we started parallelly working on our SEO strategy as well, because we knew that this would be one of the biggest organic acquisition channels for the company like this.
All right, welcome to today's VidTao Podcast. Today we have Mr. Mansoor Khan. Mansoor is co-founder and CEO of Beatoven.ai. That's Beatoven.ai. So Beatoven is an AI music generation tool. So you can make amazing music, royalty-free music with the moods that you want and the sequence that you want for your videos with just a few clicks, just a few seconds. It's an unbelievable tool. They've experienced insane growth over the last few months, and projections have them hitting 1 million users in the next 6 months, which is unbelievable. What's really neat is Mansoor comes from a long family tradition of musicians in India. So 7 generations of master musicians. And he's also a musician growing up, and then got really into machine learning and data science and combined those 2 passions to create this Beatoven. So again, an unbelievable AI music creation tool. He's going to talk about his journey on the product development side and also on the marketing side. Some of the early things he did to get users that did not scale, but how that has led to really unbelievable growth since then. So really excited to share this conversation with you and hope you enjoy it.
This podcast is brought to you by VidTao.com. VidTao is our free YouTube ad library and spy tool, research tool. It's VidTao.com. At VidTao, we have close to 1 million unlisted YouTube video ads that you can search, find, discover how they're doing on a day-by-day basis. So you can really see what ads your competitors are running, see ads in different markets that you can model to create new winning ads for yourself, and a whole lot more. It's all there inside VidTao.com. Plus, we have a premium edition. So the database is free to access, but then we also have a premium edition where you have full unlimited access to the database. And inside there, we also provide training. So we also run an agency called Inceptly. That's INCEPTLY, Inceptly.com, where we've managed over $150 million on YouTube. It's a video traffic agency, and we've worked with everyone from brands like Descript.com, Huel, to real scrappy direct response, info products, supplements, health, beauty, e-commerce, you name it, we've done it. And love sharing what we've learned. Every week we drop new training in there, everything from YouTube ad media buying to running e-commerce creatives on YouTube to hardcore tracking and attribution tutorials to really level up your data science game for advertising and everything in between. Right now, as we speak, we're working on a training regarding YouTube Shorts. Hopefully we'll be live by the time you hear this. On and on and on. This is our passion, is video advertising, and we want to share it with you inside of VidTao Premium. And actually right now, for a limited time, you can get access to VidTao Premium for a very special price. So if you go to VidTao.com, sign up for free, check out the database, upgrade to Premium for this very special price, you'll get access to all of the database and all the trainings. And also wanted to add that at Inceptly, we do free brainstorm calls with clients like you. So if you ever want to get help or ask questions about your YouTube ads, your video traffic on other platforms, we're available to chat. Just go to inceptly.com/call, CALL, and set up a time to chat. It's free, and we'd love to speak with you. Our team's waiting to speak with you. So without further ado, let's get into the show.
Mansoor, well, thanks so much. Welcome to VidTao Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So, Beatoven.ai. So, How did you come up with this idea of making AI music?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So we never actually came up with an idea of making AI music. We were actually looking for a very interesting problem to solve in the content creation workspace. So what we basically found out is there is this massive problem that most people who create videos, podcasts, and various forms of content on the internet, they are caught up with licensing and copyright infringement issues when they end up using commercial music in the background of their content. As a result of which, they lose out on potential monetization opportunities through their content, and it's just a bit of a mess. Also because of lack of awareness from the content creator side. So we decided to address this gap in the industry, which is currently being solved by stock music libraries. And the way how we thought about this space is, why not build a system where these content creators could make soundtracks themselves by giving very high level preferences to this system in the form of moods, genres, tempo, duration. And on the basis of those input parameters, the artificial intelligence would compose an original soundtrack in real time. So that was the original thesis. And this thesis was basically validated. We had seen a couple of startups in the past who had attempted to build something in this direction. So we spoke to the ex-founders. Our insights matched with their insights. We also spoke to a lot of customers, like 600, 700 YouTube content creators. But one of the things that we learned while we were doing customer development is it's extremely ambitious to build a product in this space for which generates music, because ultimately you will not pass on like bad quality music. It has to be good quality music at the same time also solve a problem for the content creators. So yeah, so that's basically how this whole idea pioneered. Like that's how me and my co-founder, we discovered, okay, there is something to be built and out in this space, and that's how Beethoven kind of took birth. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat. It's so I noticed you went to Georgia Tech for a bit in studying machine learning for audio applications. Was you were still at sort of the problem discovery phase at that point, or what was that like?
Yeah, so I wasn't working on the startup idea back then. I was a student, and basically at that point in time, uh, I was just the dumb person in the room in Georgia Tech because it's like such a competitive, crazy place with all smart people around you. So, and that process, it's actually a good place to be in because you end up learning a lot when you're in those kind of situation. So I was basically doing my master's in music technology at Georgia Tech, and I was working under this professor who kind of shaped, to some extent of how to think about technical problems and how to apply these technologies like machine learning, deep learning. And this was very early days, like, I mean, not the kind of hype that we have today. This is back in 2018, and I've been working in this space even before that. And I've kind of seen the whole, how the entire wave has just shifted over the last couple of years. So yeah, with Georgia Tech, it was basically that. It was just amplifying those skills and learning more, and just getting a better grip on this space of audio and machine learning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so neat how that this your I just looked at your CV prior to that, and you're studying sort of perception of tone of sitar, the sitar instrument, and
Yeah.
doing machine learning with that prior. So that's super interesting. You've had this sort of this crossover of the data and the I guess music is just math essentially, right? There's some element of that. There's very quantifiable
Right.
components. Yeah, that's really neat that's been so ongoing for
Yeah.
you.
I mean, so for me, basically, like just to touch upon my background, I come from a family of musicians. So music has been in my family for 7 generations.
Wow.
So every generation there have been like some legendary stalwarts coming out of my family, who have been signed by some big record label, been performing across the world to concerts, and it's kind of continued to my dad's generation as well. And so we kids also kind of picked up music at home. Now, naturally, when you come from a background like that and you get into tech, automatically your brain kind of starts thinking, okay, how do I find a space where I can marry my two passions? Like I really like math and technology, but I also like music. So that led me to the discovery of this very, very niche space called music tech, which is, I wouldn't say more than 1,000 people in the world who actually work in this space. But yeah, like those are people who really like music and are also very passionate about technology. Only those two intersections, when they meet, that's when people get into this space. So it's super niche. Very few companies, of course, the likes of companies like Spotify who do a lot of active research in this space. But yeah, it's a very, very small community of researchers that belong inside of this space, essentially. Yeah. So that's basically how that sitar thing that you saw, right? Like it was basically because I used to play the sitar, I was very curious about the sound of the instrument, as to what distinguishes this versus several other instruments that are out there. So to get a deeper hold of that, that's when I decided, okay, let me take this up as a project and apply machine learning and analyze the sounds of sitar. Yeah.
That's really neat. And so, when it comes to what you mentioned with Beatoven.ai, so you have this ability to really provide moods, right? How do you quantify moods when you're sort of providing these inputs, your however you
Right.
want to define it? Yeah, how do you quantify a mood?
No, that's a great question. I would say it's a very subjective space, honestly. Like what is sounds happy to somebody might sound depressing to someone, might sound angry to someone else. So it's extremely difficult to categorize moods accurately. But the way how we approach it is we look at the music theory. We look at like, okay, we don't look at it as a machine learning or a mathematical problem, but we look at it as a, okay, like from the science of how emotions play out in music, right? Like what is it, like what kind of combination of notes represent certain moods that are out there. And of course it changes for different genres of music. So when we are looking at, let's say, Indian music, we dug down deep and understood the whole science of the association of notes with scales with emotions in Indian music. Similarly, for Western music, there are some publications done by scholars and people who have written compositions in the Western music space, having clear-cut definitions of what mood is representative of what scale or what key, things like that. So there are a lot of music rules out there. Those act as good starting points, I would say. You could like utilize them to begin somewhere, but they are not obviously like the most accurate representation because again it's subjective. So the way how we are looking at this problem is internally we have started something called as feedback for the AI. So let's say I generate a song, I could listen to it, and then I could basically tell the system that, hey, this doesn't sound happy, this sounds sad. And let's say many people kind of say something to the sonic preferences of what the AI is generating, like to saying like, oh, this doesn't sound happy, this sound. So automatically the system kind of evolves, and then it represents the mood better. So something more of like a recommendation game for the users based on their preferences. That's the route forward for us in terms of mood representation. But as of today, it's pretty static. It's on the basis of what the theory kind of defines. Okay, this is what the mood should look like or feel like or hear like. Yeah.
Interesting. Would you say that? So, just comparing, for instance, Western music and music from India, are there any quantifiable differences on what constitutes a happy mood, let's say? Or is it a cultural thing or a human thing? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so my co-founder had done an interesting research on this actually when he was in college back in his days, and this is exactly what he had also told me is like culture is a big impact when it comes to interpreting different forms. Like somebody who would interpret Indian music from Europe versus somebody interpreting Indian music from India would very differently feel it because that's the kind of emotion that you grew up in, right? So it's pretty interesting. So, but yes, in terms of defining the unit of what would go inside composing an Indian song versus going and composing a Western music song, the theory is kind of different. So the like an Indian, like our Indian genre uses Indian classical music. So Indian classical music has its own theory in terms of what scales it present: happy, sad, inspirational, versus the way how Western music kind of approaches it. There are interestingly quite a lot of intersections, but of course they have their own approaches as well. So there are some stark differences in the two. Yeah.
Very interesting. That's really cool. Um, so what did the first iteration of Beethoven look like? Like, what was the interface like? Like, what was the ugly first draft? Really curious about that.
Great question. It was so basically it was just me and my co-founder the first 4 months of a conceptualization of Beethoven. It was basically a very very scrappy product, which had but it still had like some feel of what it looks like today. It did
Yeah.
have like some aspects in terms of the visual obviously was not very strong, but the
Right.
but the composition system was still pretty decent. So people could still give like very simple input parameters like duration, mood, tempo, and of course it was very restricted. It was a minimum viable product with just five modes and and three genres maybe. And Yeah, I think the output was good. It was a very slow system. It was extremely slow in terms of how much time it would take to generate a track. I think it would take around 1.5 to 2 minutes to make one track. From there, today we have been able to bring it down to five tracks under 10 seconds. So
Wow.
that's an optimization problem. But yeah, like the first question, if I have to answer, that is what it felt like. I think our investors also, when they invested in the product, they took a bet on the technology. Like if you look at what it was doing in terms of compressing a whole process of creating a track, which typically takes 5 to 7 days if you had to do it in an indie way, bringing it down to under 2 minutes. That is basically what the promise was of the technology. Yeah.
Wow. Then how was it? What was it like getting your first users, getting them on that initial version of the product?
Yeah, getting first users is always hard. So we took a very interesting approach of how to get our users. So what we did is we would use Clubhouse a lot. So Clubhouse at that point in time was pretty huge. It was like going through a viral wave, and so when I joined Clubhouse, and I would join these communities where these content creators would hang out. So I would just listen to them and like what are the kind of tools they use, what is it that they do today to create content, how do they distribute their content, just understanding the whole ecosystem and keeping the music lens aside. But then I would also pitch into those conversations and ask them like, how do you all go about getting your music today, and what is it that you guys do, what is it that do you like original music, or do you all just want to use trending music that's already there on the internet, what's it in terms of preferences. So people would get curious and they would be like, okay, hey, why are you asking so many questions about music? So so then they would like DM on Instagram with their email IDs, and that's how I kind of got my first 1,000 users. It was just purely like things that don't scale, right? Like you just go to them and you tell them, hey, this is what I'm building. Like I would love to hear some feedback from you guys. It's a hard path, but yeah, it definitely helps because that initial 1,000, 10,000 users feedback is what kind of shapes your first polished version of your product. So yeah, that's basically how we went about it. Yeah.
That's interesting. And then at what point what was the biggest shift in terms of what did you invest the most time, money, energy, brain power in? Was the first big sort of user directed shift that you made based on that feedback? How did that help shape the next version of Beethoven?
Yeah, so there were a lot of interesting insights that came from our initial conversations. So our users would say things like, "Hey, I would like to." So initially, the moods that you see on the tool, they were just like images. They didn't have any audio waveforms or anything in it. So our users should be like, "Hey, the mood is good, but can I preview what this mood could potentially solve like?" So that was one interesting insight that came from most conversations. Then there was another insight where people would say like, hey, you know what, video is not static, it kind of changes with time. Like after 15-20 seconds we want that mood to transition into something else, like it could be happy, or it could go from happy to depressing, or depressing to inspirational. Is that functionality possible inside of this AI? So the expectations were huge. I have to be very frank, like just because of the fact that we were building an AI tool, everybody thought like anything is possible. Like, I could just do anything with the system and it will just do the way how I wanted to. That has been kind of a challenge. But then, of course, like as product managers, what we have done is we have taken feedback that is ultimately essential. That also helps because ultimately we need to focus on the core value proposition, and the core problem that we are solving is serving and providing royalty-free music. Now, how you give that music and what functionalities you build on top of it, that is basically what the iterative customer development was helping us develop. So that's how we prioritized our features. And so, in terms of shift in the product, adding previews, giving instrument controls, having subsections, giving like the users the ability to have multiple moods inside the same song. All of these kind of features is what we kind of discovered, and we brought it onto the tool. Yeah.
Got it.
And parallelly, we also kind of understood that a lot of our users look for royalty-free music online on Google search. Like they would just type like royalty-free music for background videos, background music for videos, things like that. So we started parallelly working on our SEO strategy as well, like back from them, because we knew that this would be one of the biggest organic acquisition channels for the company like this eventually. Yeah.
Nice. So is that your strongest cold acquisition channel currently, is the SEO stuff?
As of today, yes, I would say 40% of our users come from SEO. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. So you have a lot of very specific blog content. Looks like you're very well optimized for picking up.
Yeah, I mean, blogs are just experiments, I would say. Like some of them work really well, but it's also well researched based on what users are looking for. And also, these keywords is something that they don't stay static forever. Like there are shifts in consumer behaviors that happen, and then suddenly people start searching for things that you would never even anticipate. Like people look nowadays for AI music generator free. I mean, like, that's such a new keyword. Nobody would have thought about it in 2019 or 2018 that people would look for AI music online. So it's interesting. That's why you need to keep evolving your content strategy. It cannot be what you had probably thought of 2 years back is not relevant today. Like so you have to keep evolving on that for sure. Yeah.
How do you stay on top of the things that your potential customers are looking for, and how do you
Right.
stay top of mind?
I think one advantage that Beethoven has gotten being ahead of the curve, because, like I said, we started building this 2 years back, and the wave of AI just came like 6 months back after ChatGPT.
Yeah.
ChatGPT in January obviously brought a big wave, but even before that, the likes of Jasper and Midjourney, Stability, all these guys were pretty around and they were pretty popular, right? So the sudden wave of adoption came in. And as a result of it, people started looking for, okay, what about the AI music equivalents of this, right? And we were rightly positioned there at the right time, because people are looking for it and we are already present, in terms of usage. So that has been kind of like a first mover early advantage that we have gotten in this new trend where people are organically discovering us. But how do we keep ourselves on top of the mind of our users? So there are a couple of things that we do. We definitely keep studying competitors pretty seriously. Like we use tools like SEMrush. We use Google alerts and Google Search Console. We use also like all of this Google Trends to see like what people are looking for right now, and accordingly we keep curating our strategy, on the basis of what users are looking for. So yeah, so getting top of the mind awareness also is a factor of giving them the best product experience, because once your initial, let's say, 10,000 users like what you're building, they would take the word of mouth distribution to another 50,000 users. So I think that's also a very important aspect, and that is kind of, we try to bake it into the experience as well as a product. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I see that
Yeah.
you have this tagging. When you tag at Beatoven.ai,
Right.
you get the 20 minutes of download for the free account, etc. So you
Right.
have these sort of like
Hooks
somewhat,
and
yeah.
loops, which we have kind of built by design so that people keep discovering us. It's a continuous pipeline. Yeah.
What have been your challenges when it comes to pricing the product? Just curious
Um,
about that journey.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way how we priced our product initially was on the basis of competition study. We had looked at, okay, how much do the stock music libraries charge today, and is it something? Obviously, the fact that they're charging at that price point, people are willing to pay at that price point. So it's as simple as that. But then eventually we started seeing that there was some crazy VC funding activity that was happening in the entire stock music market. As a result of which, these companies slashed their prices by one third. Like what company was charging $20 a month went down to $8 a month. So I think the strategy was to acquire as many users as there are out there at a cheaper price point. So that's basically what they did. So for us as well, what we do is we keep studying the pricing then accordingly. Like, okay, we don't want to undercut the competitors. We don't want to be too expensive. But we would essentially provide something much better in terms of experience in comparison to the competitor, and keep a price that is appropriate at a point where people would pay. Like it can't be out of the budget of the consumers or the content creators who are using it. So in terms of targeting, we look at people or content creators who are monetizing, who are already making money, so that they would have the ability to purchase a subscription. And of course, based on geography, our prices also change. I mean, like if it's a user that we're targeting from the Western markets, it would be slightly more premium in comparison to how much we would be charging inside of India, because obviously the purchasing power and price parity and all of those aspects come into the picture, while you're pricing your customers. Yeah.
Got it. So what do you see as, what are your, I know you're, so right now you're calling in from the heart of the tech world there in San Francisco. So
Yeah.
what do you, what's big on your agenda for 2023, Beethoven?
Yeah, I think one of our goals is to get to 1 million users.
Uh,
So we currently are, as if where we stand right now, we are at 150,000,
nice.
and of which 120,000 users have just come in the last 2 months. So
Wow.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Crazy.
probably our hockey stick journey probably might have started.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
but yes, and the best part is all of these users are coming organic. We don't do any sort of marketing right now, like paid marketing or any sort.
Mhm.
So of course, like SEO is one, then word of mouth, then social media, all of these PR, all these magazines keep writing about us. So that's where our users are coming from. And in terms of goals, yeah, I think we want to get to 1 million users. And of course, retention is one of the most important thing that we want to focus on this year, because acquiring users and not retaining them is the worst that we could do to our product. So I think that's what we are going to focus on. Monetization is not a very big aspect for us right now. Our main focus is we want users to use this and get benefit out of the product. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, are you get 1 million users? And so, you're a data guy. So what's your, given the, like, looks like the hockey stick started, like you said, when are you going to hit 1 million users, do you think?
I think if we do some slight push to our already organic discovery that's going on, we should be able to get there in 6 months.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. So basically, in less than a year, you're
Right.
gonna, yeah, go from, that's insane. That's crazy. That's awesome. Um, so how can people get started? So where can people go to try out Beethoven for themselves and really
Yeah.
give it a whirl?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. It's a web application, so you don't have to download anything. You just have to go to our website, www.beatoven.ai. It's beatoven.ai. And you just can directly get started for free of charge. We have a freemium, which gives 15 minutes of monthly downloads. So you could be a free user forever, but of course be restricted by that duration of download at 15 minutes. Or you could pay a subscription and have a wider download duration. Yes, and as soon as you sign up, you can just sign in with your Google. You could just maybe create an account and create your first track. And within 5 to 10 minutes, you should be able to hear some music inside of Beethoven. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's cool.
And if you do like the music, and let's say you're somebody who's a serious content creator, you could just hit download. And when you hit download, you get an automatic email that comes to your inbox with the license to use the music. So it's like a seamless experience completely. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. And then you can just add it to your video, put it out on
Yeah.
your social media, and you
Yeah. And
don't have
not
to
worry
worry
about
about,
anything. Anything. Yeah.
so you're not going to get flagged by YouTube for
No.
using copyrighted content.
As of today, we have, like, of all the users that we have used Beethoven, we haven't got even a single copyright claim as of it. So
That's a
that's,
lot.
yeah.
Do you think that in the future there will be, how is that going to work for, I guess, will there be a time when a specific AI engine can actually stamp something with a license? Like, is there going to be a time when an AI artist, literally an AI artist, will be able to claim royalties off the model? Let's say, is that
Hmm.
a potentiality, you think, or is it, just curious how you think
Um,
see things going
that
there?
that's a great question, actually. I mean, it depends on the law as well, right? Like, if the law allows it, then I guess anything is possible. But I don't think, as of where we stand today. So just to give you some context, like, considering we come from India, right? Like, so if you look at the Indian copyright law, what it says is any form of AI generated content, uh, uh, the copyright belongs to the programmer of that AI. So
Uh-huh.
technically, the company that has created the AI.
Uh,
But if you look at the US copyright law, I think recently they flagged down and they struck down art piece that was claiming for copyright ownership on image generators. I don't think there has been much in terms of music generators. Yes, we are yet to look at that space. So yeah, I think if that happens, let's assume that an AI is able to own copyrights through the music that it's generating, then of course it could even start claiming royalties. It could distribute music to Spotify, and it could do all of the stuff that an artist does. Uh, but it's interesting, right? Like, but that would also mean that people don't really. I mean, I don't personally believe that that could happen, because people don't listen to music just for the music. They listen to it for the artist. They listen to it for the fandom, and a lot of aspects. They study the story of the artist, and of course the style of the artist. So can an AI replicate all of that? If that's true, then yes, maybe then I think that's a real possibility. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. Yeah.
So could you conceivably fine tune an AI music production model, let's say with all of my favorite musicians and bands, and then have it produce something completely original from that would somehow be uniquely attractive to my ear?
Right.
Is that feasible?
It is feasible, and I think if you look at the recent model that Google built, right, the text to music, that was a demonstration of something like that. Of course, they didn't release it commercially because of obviously copyright issues, but yeah, I think that's a real possibility. It's ultimately a data game, right? Like if you have all the data in the world of all the music that has been historically released, and you train it on one huge model, and basically then inference give it text prompts to the model like, hey, I want to have a song in the style of Avicii combined with, let's say, 90s bands, like something like that, and it actually accurately just gives out something which is very similar to what you were thinking. I think that's it. That's game over. Basically, it's you will have solved the problem of accurately finding music, for whatever task you need it for. Yeah.
That's amazing. Is last question is basically so like sentence embeddings where you're quantifying the meaning of a word or a sentence mathematically. Is there something similar for music?
Yeah, I mean, one thing similar about text and music is both of them are sequential data, right? I mean, they are time series. They have a But what's interesting about music is it's also two-dimensional. It's not just sequential horizontally, but it's also has meaning vertically, right? Like the way how things are arranged. Like there's a bass line, there's a drum, there's a synth line, all of that. Like so, multiple layers. So there the similarity kind of gets broken. So it's much more complex when it comes to music to accurately arrange instruments and also have them sound good, and also have them not have dissonance amongst themselves and make meaning out of it. So yeah, I think that's where the stark difference comes between text and music. Yeah.
Well, kudos to you. You've been able to crack the code on that, and clearly your user count is definitely indicating that you're achieving some resonance with
Let's
the.
see. Nice words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mansoor, really, thank you so much for being on the show. And again, so if people want to try out Beatoven for free, I keep saying Beatoven because that's how I mind sees it. But Beatoven.ai for free. They can go to beatoven.ai. And I know our team, we do a lot of video. We buy a lot of royalty-free music from other sites, and I know we're going to be trying this out, and really looking forward to that. So definitely highly recommend everyone else do the same.
Thank you so much, Ian, and feel free to write to me if you anything that you. I mean, this is for all the users as well. Like, if you guys want to give us feedback to Beatoven, like, please write to us at hello@beatoven.ai. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Mansoor. Enjoy your time out in San Francisco. Good luck, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, we will. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of VidTao Podcast. Again, my name is Ian Naj, co-founder of VidTao, and really appreciate you having a listen. And it means a lot. So if you have any feedback, go ahead and email us at info@vidtao.com. Love to hear your ideas for future shows, future guests. If you want to be a guest, let us know. Love to chat. Also, just as a reminder, this show has been sponsored by VidTao, which is our free YouTube ad library, vidtao.com. Again, you can go to VidTao and look up over 1 million ads at this point inside of VidTao. They're all unlisted YouTube ads. You can see what your competitors are running, track the results on a day-by-day basis, find new ads inside of our YouTube ad library, VidTao. And we also have a premium edition of VidTao. So the library is free to access, but for full unlimited access to the library, we have a premium edition of VidTao. We also have training from our inceptly.com agency, which is our sister company to VidTao, where we've managed over $150 million on YouTube. We provide training on media buying, creatives, tracking, copywriting, everything in between. It's all there inside of VidTao Premium. And right now we're running a very special deal on VidTao Premium. And you can go claim that right now at VidTao.com. When you sign up for free, you'll see the offer to join Premium, and go there and check that out. And last thing, we also do free brainstorm calls with our agency Inceptly. Go to inceptly.com/call. And we love brainstorming with you on your video advertising and just marketing in general. Love to chat. So inceptly.com/call, CALL. Would love to speak with you. So thanks again for joining us, and looking forward to the next show. In the meantime, have a great week.